everybody. Old Guy Jamming here. Sub, hit, share, all that sort of stuff. I want to talk about 2x12 cabs today and or 1x12 cabs, speaker cabs in general. That intro track was some Saturday morning noodling for fun through the Engel. Love this setup. Very happy with it. That was the clean channel on the Engel with the tumness on for a little hair, and then the lead was, even though it was a little hot for the mix, the lead was with the Mesa Flux Drive. The beats were provided by the Strum, and the Wolfgang was the instrument of choice for that track. Well, so let's talk speaker cabs. Got several years of experience with different cabs, and I've come to some conclusions, and I'm ready to share out some things that might help you decide what it is you'd like to get. So starting with 2x12 cabs, a lot of people want to mix speakers, and I think that is a good idea if you keep them in their own separate cab. If you're putting two speakers in the same cab, I think it's better to have them more similar than they are different. I think the more different two speakers are, the more they'll fight each other in a singular cab. They'll affect each other by the way they operate, and I believe you lose some stuff. Similar speakers I would consider like the V30 and the Swamp Thing. We're very mid-range. In the mid-range area, they're very similar, with the Swamp Thing carrying on the bass side, the deep stuff where the V30 leaves off, and the V30 taking care of the upper end, or the brightness, the bright character that the Swamp Thing does not have. But mid-range wise, they're very much the same thing. They're both kind of mid-scooped speakers. So I think those two work well together, but if you have two speakers that are not matched, sensitivity-wise, too, is a big factor, I believe. Some people say it's not, but even 3 dB can be a factor, and some speakers vary by 5 dB. So that's a real consideration. But if you're going to mix speakers, I think you're better off putting them each in their own separate cab, like a combo with one speaker and an extension cab with another speaker. I think works better than a head with those two speakers in the same cab. All right? If you do have two speakers in the same cab, I think you're better running it in stereo, with each speaker having its own signal from the head rather than a mono signal being split by the two speakers. I've just noticed some things on playback with my PV 2x12 where, as I added instruments and frequencies to the mix, some of it was getting lost. It wasn't reproducing like I thought it should. Couldn't hear some of it. This isn't happening with the Fireball Pro Cab, which is just a 1x12. As I add instruments, I can still hear the instrument. I hear all the frequencies of the lead in the playback. I'm not losing stuff, clarity, which I really appreciate. All right, so mixing speakers, perhaps. I'm not necessarily, though, a big fan of that. And if you do, keep them in their own separate cabinet, or at least run separate channels to them. And think about putting a baffle in your 2x12 cab instead of two 1x12s. If you have a 2x12, try a baffle, fairly tight-fitting baffle between the two speakers, especially in a closed back situation. This won't be as big a factor if it's open back because you don't have the air pressure working off the speaker cone. But if it's a closed bag and you want to play with it, put a baffle inside. It's fairly tight. Insulation board, something easy to work with, and see if you don't hear a difference. Okay, sensitivity is a consideration as well, which is how loud a speaker is. It's the dB rating, or the sensitivity rating of the speaker, 98 to 101, 100, whatever the case may be. The higher the number, the louder the speaker is going to be, and 3 dB in a 212 cab can be considerable. Some people say it's negligible, you won't hear it. I disagree. I think 3 dB is definitely something you can hear, where you might not even start hearing the speaker that is less in volume. You might hear part of it, but it won't be a true mix, I don't think, unless they're matched. You're free to disagree, though. Certainly 5 dB will be heard. If some of your amps have 6 dB boost, or your pedals, etc. That's quite a bit of volume difference. Okay? So keep that in mind as you're matching speakers. I think it's best to go with two that are very similar, with just one continuing off on where the other one leaves off, perhaps. run them each with their own source channel, or put a baffle in, or two separate 1x12 cabs, so that the speaker can do what it's designed to do without interference from another speaker being in the area, same cabinet. Okay, if you have an open back cab, I suggest you put it in corners or against a wall. Also, put them on chairs or a little stand. Try to get cabs off the floor. Some cabs will convey a lot of bass frequency to the floor, or to the floor, and they might chatter. They seem to operate better if they're off the floor, so on a chair or a little stand of sorts. I plan to put this one on a little stand as well. Even though it's closed back, I think I'll lift it off the floor and it'll fill the space a little bit better. But try to do that with your larger cabinets as well, especially the Fender cabs. They benefit a great deal from being off the floor and not too close to a wall. But your open backs will sound better in a corner or against a wall, because the sound coming out of the back of the cabinet is fairly significant. It's very much like what's coming out the front of the speaker, except it's not focused. But there still is air pressure leaving the cab from the back, and if you have it closer to a wall, you'll hear that in the room. All right, and getting on then to 1x12 cabs. Is bigger better? And I think, I think it is. I looked at volumes for particular 1x12 cabs. I've had quite a few. I've had the Rebel. I've had very different ones in combos, for sure, and combos tend to be kind of the same, and they always usually are open back. But I have had a few 2x12 and 1x12 cabs. The Rebel, Ignata Rebel, is particularly small, I thought, but similar to the Marshall and similar to many. And I think when it comes to 1x12 cabs, the bigger the better. If you look at some of the best-selling cabs, you're going to see that the volume of the cabinet is larger. All right, so I went ahead and looked at some of the best-selling cabs out there. Should we start with the small ones? I guess we will. All right, the Tweaker 1x12 extension cab is partially open in the back. It has 3,300 cubic inches of volume. The Rebel has, and it's a very small cab, and when I had it, I had a really hard time trying to get enough bass out of it. It's ported, or has a circular vent in it. Porting is a little different than venting, but either way, it's an escape hole for the air. And I thought it was a very bass lacking cab. Its volume was 3,952 cubic inches. The Marshall 1x12, the cheapo one, is 4,180. So we're getting larger, slightly larger all the time. But these are moderately priced, 180, 250, maybe a $300 cab, but they're less than the $300 mark. Now you get up into the bigger cabs, the nicer cabs, the cabs people remark about. For example, the orange cab. A lot of people love the orange cabs. Well, they're 4,752 cubic inches, which is 600 more than the biggest one we covered already, the smaller ones, the stock kind of standard ones. So 4,752. The Fender Hot Rod Deluxe cab. Now the Fender Hot Rod Deluxe is a large combo, and like the 40 DSL by Marshall, and they're large, I think, because they realize that it's going to sound better. Those high volume cab amps are going to sound better with larger volume boxes. So it's a larger combo to begin with. The matching Hot Rod Deluxe cab is also 4,752. So the orange is 4,752, the Fender 4,752. The Mesa wide body is another cabinet that people rave about. Best cab I've ever had, sounds great bass response, tight, etc. It's over 5,000. It's 5,083 cubic inches. All right, so we're seeing a correlation. This one, the Angle Fireball, is, well, the Angle Pro heads the Fireball, but the Pro cab is 5,244 cubic inches. So of the ones I looked at, it's the biggest 1x12 there, and it's considered an oversized 1x12 cab, but I think it's well worth it because the bass response from this is awesome. As good or better than the 2x12 I had without losing anything with those two speakers fighting each other. And it's smaller, it's compact, it's made for this head. I'm really happy with it. I was leery because of my experience with previous 1x12 cabs being lackluster, not enough bass, kind of just bleh, dead, boxy, those kind of characteristics. But very happy with it. And this one is ported. So I think when you come to a 1x12 cab, save your money, do what you have to do, but spend the extra for a wide body or an oversized 1x12. You'll really hear a big sound difference. All right, and then, and just for giggles, I looked up the Marshall 2x12 upright, vertical, 2x12 slanted. It has 8,190 cubic inches. The Mesa upright 1x12 or 2x12 slanted cab has 9,400. So that's a difference of 1,200 cubic inches in the Mesa cab. And I think Mesa's willing, I think they understand that the largeness of the cab is important, and they go ahead and give that consideration. The reason people rave about those cabs is because they sound better, and I think they sound better because they're larger. Now, some other considerations. The 2x12 will deliver more bass at lower volumes, but you usually don't have a 2x12 if you're interested in playing at lower volumes. But it will deliver a little more bass at a quieter level. It's going to be louder than a 1x12. If the amp is at the same volume level, the 2x12 will be about 3 dB louder than a 1x12. But that, I think, is a good thing. I like that this 1x12 cab is inherently quieter. I mean, these heads, the 15-watt heads and whatever, are very loud. So it's, playing volume's never going to be an issue. Being too loud for what I do, and for a lot of people what they're doing now, being too loud is the problem. Getting good tone at quieter volumes, that's what we're looking for. And the oversized 1x12s deliver in spades. All right, and then lastly, ported versus vented. Porting or venting in audio hi-fi, an actual piece of PVC type pipe was inserted into the cabinet, and its length was determined by studies and computer models and whatnot, and it allowed the speaker maker to tune the cabinet to the speaker so that you didn't have any weird resonant flare-ups. I think with some of the Fender amps I've played, when you play a B or a C note that seems to resonate in the cab in an unnice way. I don't like it. The whole thing starts to hum and kind of buzz, and it's ugly. So that's the idea behind porting, is to do away with those kind of resonant blow-ups or whatever. Is it necessary? I don't know. But if somebody took the time to do it, it may be for good reason. This one has a small hole. I would consider it more of a vent. Venting and porting, again, kind of the same thing. Sometimes, though, very beneficial. I have a two-speaker cab I have in the garage that was fairly large, and it had a 2x12 in it and a 10-inch V30 that came out of something. Nice enough speaker, but I had a bassy speaker, and the 10-inch I thought would give me some high-end sparkle, and put the two together in parallel, so it's an 8-ohm cab, and sealed up. And I was playing it pine box. Pine's supposed to be brighter than your plywood, etc. I think at that point we get into cork sniffing a little bit. Anyway, the cab itself was a bit boomy and muffled, so I took a hole saw and drilled a large hole right in the top of the cab where it would be under the head that's sitting on it, and cleared it up. So, I dig it. I like cabs with a little air in them. I think that sounds better. There's a certain brightness that comes out. I think you lose a little bit of that with a sealed cab. But to each his own. But just drilling a hole in that thing fixed the muffy, woofy aspect of the cab. So that was good. So there's something to it, and it works well. And you'll develop an ear for what you need to do to a cab. I used to line some of them with insulation to get rid of some of the shrillness. You can. It's another rabbit hole that you can go down. Anyway, that's it. So hopefully those things give you some insight into picking out your next cab so that you don't get something that you're not happy with. I would suggest 1x12s and save you money for the larger ones. I know it's a hard thing to do. It's a lot to pay for a one cabinet, but it pays off. It's worth it in the long run. You'll really appreciate it. The smaller cabs, I just don't think produce like you'll want them to. Okay? So enjoy this noodle out, and we'll see you next time.